Hello and welcome to your Steeler Nation podcast, part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports podcast network and sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises. I'm your host, Stryker, and we've heard all the names thrown around, but today we're going to take an in-depth look at who is the best free agent quarterback option for the Steelers. So no, we won't be talking about quarterbacks still under contract. So no more speculative conversations about Aaron Rodgers, who it seems like Green Bay now wants to make him the highest paid quarterback ever. Russell Wilson, who their team is now saying they want to re-sign. No Carson Wentz, no David Carr, Kirk Cousins, Matt Ryan, no Deshaun Watson, no Kyler Murray, who might be going back to his team because now Arizona's saying they want to have him back. And no Jimmy G, for gosh sakes. ESPN, stop throwing Jimmy G's name with the Steelers. Guy's got to go in for shoulder surgery on his throwing shoulder right now. He's not going to be ready in the offseason. We need a quarterback that's going to be ready in the offseason so they can compete with Haskins and Rudolph. Jimmy G is not the guy anymore. He's off the list, Steeler Nation. Do not believe what talking heads are saying about Jimmy G coming to the Steelers, because he ain't. So let's talk about the Steelers that are now currently free agents, and not Ben Roethlisberger, by the way, because he technically is a free agent. We all know he's retiring. He's done. He's not coming back. So let's look at the quarterbacks now, kind of like an age, like who's the oldest one left on free agent market, and then we'll work our way back to some valid options, because right now, 39-year-old Ryan Fitzpatrick is a free agent. He cost $10 million last year. This year, if he came back, I think he'd be in like the 5 to 8 range. Didn't play much last year because he was the backup. Didn't get on much. He's been on like 9 teams. He knows how to win. He knows how to manage games. He can be effective. Grows an awesome beard. I'm impressed, even with my beard. But he's old. And he had season-ending hip surgery. So when you're old and you need hip surgery, good chances you're probably done playing football. Enjoy your AARP card. Enjoy your rest of your career with your huge family. I think you have more kids than cities you played for. You're incredible, Ryan. And get on with your life's work. I just do not see him as an option. I think he should retire. Next oldest quarterback in free agency is Joe Flacco. Joe Flacco didn't get to play much last year, had 2 games played in, 1 start, which he lost. He cost $3.5 million, which isn't a lot, and I love his size. Always loved his size. 6'6", 245, biggest quarterback in free agency right now. But he got traded mid-season from Philly to the Jets. Only played in 2 games. Really does not have it anymore, in my opinion. I loved him before as being able to run and make extend plays with that big body. Tough to bring down, much like Big Ben was. But now I think he's at the point of his career. He's just not effective. I think he should retire. Andy Dalton, next man up. Surprisingly, only 34 years old. I was really surprised with that. He cost like $10 million last year. This year, maybe in the $4 to $8 million range if he gets re-signed. He played in 8 games. He was 3-3 in his starts, 8 touchdowns, 1,500 yards, 9 interceptions and a fumble though. So now he's getting right there to the even level, or getting upside down in his touchdown to interception ratio. He was a good game manager. I think he's a capable backup, but now he's pushing 35 years old. I don't think we're looking for a backup. So Andy Dalton, you're not going to be on the Steelers' radar either. Might be time to retire. Who knows? You might want to try to push it for a couple more years, but Steelers aren't going to be your landing spot. Next one's a little bit more intriguing. It is Cam Newton, who played for Carolina, came back on the return tour to the team that started him in the previous, that drafted him, I should say, and he had an MVP season with them. Went deep to the playoffs, had an MVP caliber year, but he's not the same guy anymore. Started 5 games last year, lost all 5. He had 9 total touchdowns, 4 passing, 5 rushing, but also had 5 interceptions and 4 fumbles. So, 9 touchdowns to 9, putting the ball on the ground and throwing interceptions is not as accurate, but He's a big mobile quarterback. He's still 6'5", 235. Problem is I see him now as turnover prone and having a trouble even winning football games. So, he took over at a point in the season last year for Carolina. They were 5-7. They had a chance to turn things around before he started his 5 games. He lost 5 straight at that point. They were out of it. And then he got benched for Sam Darnold in week 17. So he didn't even finish the season. Carolina's done with him. They're probably not going to have him back. And I think at this point, he's a backup as well. I mean, I like his mobility aspect, but, and he'd be cheap. He'd probably be in about the $5 million range next year to bring him in, but I just don't see him as being an effective quarterback in our system next season. Next guy is another guy who surprisingly is the same age as Cam Newton, another mobile quarterback, and that's Tyrod Taylor, a guy who's been around the league. He cost $5.5 million last year. I think he'd be in about that range this year as well. He went 2-4 in his starts, had 8 total touchdowns, 5 passing and 3 rushing. Also threw 5 touchdowns and had 3 fumbles. I mean, yeah, he's kind of equal again in that touchdown to interception ratio, but he is a mobile quarterback. He can make plays with his legs. To me, he's just an intriguing backup. Like, I don't see him being able to compete with Mason Rudolph or Haskins. Another guy that won't be on the Steelers' radar, unfortunately, even though the Steelers seem to be looking for a mobile quarterback. Next guy on the list, Jacoby Brissett. $5 million last year. I think he'd be in about the $5 million range in free agency as well. Again, 2-3 as a starter. Played in 11 games though, so they got to get him into a lot of games just to make a couple plays here and there. 5 touchdowns passing, 1 rushing, 1,200 yards, 4 interceptions, and 6 fumbles. So upside down in the turnover ratio. I like his size too. He's a big guy, 6'4", 235, but he's never had a winning record in any season that he's been in the NFL. To me, is he even a starting quarterback? I don't know. You've been in the league this long without a winning season. I don't see the league as being a problem. I see it's probably you, and you're probably a backup. So no, for me, for Jacoby Brissett. Now we get to the quarterbacks where the Steelers start getting excited. Steeler Nation, you start getting excited about these guys. Marcus Mariota is 28 years young, playing in Las Vegas behind Derek Carr for the past 2 years. Cost $3.5 million last season. What's he going to cost this year? Maybe $3 to $5 million range, just because he hasn't started in 2 years. I mean, I think he's kind of intriguing. I mean, obviously he didn't put up any stats last year. He got in a few games. He had 1 touchdown rushing, none passing. He has 4 passing yards and 87 rushing yards. So he was in mop-up duty strictly last season. He's a big kid, 6'4", 222, very mobile. And he does have a winning record as a starter in Chicago. But the problem was he devalued himself severely with his contract. He said, I'm going to be a backup. I'm going to take $3.5 million a season. And he's been 2 years doing nothing behind Derek Carr. I mean, heck, you lost your job to cast off Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee. And Tannehill took your team to catastrophic or stratospheric levels. The other way, higher levels, much better than you were, though he was kind of that middling quarterback when he came in to Tennessee, and he showed you how to do your job in 2019, stole your job, and has not been nothing but a great quarterback ever since. Now you are looking to become the next Ryan Tannehill. And frankly, Marcus Mariota, you're no Ryan Tannehill, man. Are you even a starting quarterback? I don't know, but you're a big question mark. And we already have a question mark on our roster, Steelers, and that's Dwayne Haskins. Highly drafted guy, all the talent in the world, is mobile, can extend some plays. Is he going to win? I don't need 2 guys like that on my team. So I'm sorry, Marcus Mariota. The conversation is now over for you, in my opinion. get to the three guys where I think might possibly become Steelers this year. Could be a Steeler option in free agency. First one, 29-year-old Teddy Bridgewater. Cost about $4.5 million last year, but he played in 14 games, 14 starts. He was 7-7 for Denver. 18 touchdowns passing, 2 rushing. Only 7 interceptions and 1 fumble. So that's pretty damn good touchdown to turnover ratio. I actually love that. 3,000 receiving yards, 100 rushing yards, 3,000 passing yards. He wasn't a receiver. But the most passing yards of any free agent quarterback currently in the NFL. Right now, Teddy Bridgewater, you're the gold standard. I mean, you're starting to become an efficient throwing quarterback. My concern is you had 2 concussions last year. Your second one made you miss the last 3 games of the season and put you on IR. So that is a concern to me. Are you going to have more concussions moving forward? Is it going to affect your ability to make plays and your decision making? I don't know. That's a question mark. But I do love the direction that you were starting to trend. You were starting to become a better quarterback. So we'll have to see where you end up, but I think you're a valid option. What are you going to cost? I know you cost $4.5 million last year. This year, with the way the free agency market is right now for quarterbacks, and there's really no quarterbacks in free agency this year, he may garner a $10 to $12 million contract to become a starter or to compete to become a starter. Could be less. He might settle for a $5 to $8 million contract, but I could see him being in the 10 to 12 range if he's assured to be a starter in this league. And that's probably what he's going to look to do with incentives to possibly push it up higher than that. Next guy on the list is a guy I really like. Guy's name is Jameis Winston. He was the talk of the town in New Orleans last year, man. I mean, this guy went from being, throwing 30 interceptions in a season to starting off last year, playing in 7 games as a starter, was 5-2, had New Orleans at the top of their division when he got injured. 14 touchdowns passing, 1 rushing, 15 total, 3 interceptions and only 2 fumbles. That's 5. That's 15-5. That's a 3-1 touchdown to turnover ratio. Highest of any quarterback right now, and statistically above and beyond anything Winston has ever put out for a season. Is he starting to turn the corner to be a good decision-making quarterback? Looks like he was starting to last year. I would have loved for him to continue that season. He's a smart quarterback too. He's mobile. He extends plays. He has a rocket. He can throw it all the way down the field, no matter where he is, all the way across the field on the other side. And he's huge, 6'4", 231. I love these metrics on this kid. His only problem, he ripped and tore his ACL and MCL last season, which derailed him. And there's another really big, mobile, smart quarterback that got it years ago. Daunte Culpepper. Daunte Culpepper unfortunately ripped out 3 of his 4 tendons when he was trying to go to Miami to restart his career. Never restarted his career, never returned to that greatness that he had in Minnesota. But can Jameis Winston do it? Wasn't much of a knee replacement as Culpepper. I'm more optimistic that Jameis can come back from this. But we'll still have to see. That knee injury is still a big question mark. I hear he's starting to run on it now, though, Steeler Nation. So that's a big plus since we're still March, April, May, about 3 months into start doing mini camps. And he could probably do mini camps being less mobile because that's just more throwing mechanics. Doesn't have to be running for his life in mini camp at all. Not until we get toward training camp in July. And that, you're about the range there. If you're already starting to run now in February, you should be able to go in July. You should. And he looks like he's a little bit ahead of his trajectory there. So good luck to you. Godspeed to your knee. And you are an intriguing prospect. And my last prospect to talk about is one that a lot of Steeler Nation still really likes. And that is Mitchell Trubisky. He sat on the bench behind Josh Allen, got it on mop-up duty, really didn't do too much. He had 1 touchdown rushing, 43 yards passing, 24 yards rushing, 1 interception also in limited play. He's a mobile quarterback. We all know that. And he was a winning quarterback with a solid touchdown to interception ratio. So nearly 2-1. So I like that about him. But the problem is for me, for Mitchell Trubisky, is he devalued the crap out of himself severely in free agency last year when he took that $2.5 million contract to be a backup. And that's huge. I mean, his agent now says he's a $25 to $30 million quarterback, and that's not happening. That is not, you don't go from being a $2.5 million quarterback, not playing at all, not starting a single game in the season, to all of a sudden becoming a $25 million quarterback. Good luck, agent. That's just not happening. It's not. Like, I might think that he might get an $8 to $12 million contract. That is possible. And if his agent's able to land that, I think that that's a coup for Mitchell Trubisky. But is he a starting quarterback? I don't know. I mean, he already told me last year he wasn't, but then again, Josh Allen's one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I mean, he would have played if Josh Allen got hurt, but fortunately, Josh Allen is a big, tough, strong, rugged quarterback like Big Ben was early in his career. Didn't get injured as well. So, and played through injuries. Don't know what Mitchell Trubisky is. He's a big question mark, but he's intriguing. I'm not throwing him out in the bathwater. Tell you the truth. But out of those guys, if I had to make a decision, Bridgewater, Winston, Trubisky, Stryker, who's my guy? My guy's Jameis Winston. He just is. I think he's the smartest one of them all. I think he's already led the league in passing yardage. He's had a 30 touchdown season. Yeah, but he threw 30 interceptions. Yeah, it was an off year for him. And that, come on, he was in the Bruce Arians chuck and duck offense. We know what that offense is. Go back and throw the ball deep. That's what you're doing. And he did it. He got 30 touchdowns. He had still more touchdowns than interceptions. So I'm not as harsh on having those 30 interceptions that a lot of people are, especially after last year when he had 15 touchdowns to 3 interceptions. That's a big deal. That to me tells me the guy's maturing and he's a smarter kid. So he's my favorite. What's he going to cost? I think he's going to cost somewhere in the 8 to 12 million range. He cost 5.5 last year. I think he could have garnered more if he didn't get hurt. We would have been talking about him in the 20 to 30 range. Honestly, we would have been if he played a full season, sticking to those same numbers that he had in his first 7 games. Yeah, he would be getting $25 to $30 million in free agency. But he bet on himself. Unfortunately, he got injured when he bet on himself. That's going to hurt him in free agency for getting that top money. But I think the Steelers, if they want Jameis Winston, they're going to have to give him a little bit more. And they're going to have to outbid some teams to make sure he becomes the next starting quarterback. And that to me would make me the happiest. But still, honestly, I wouldn't be upset with a Bridgewater. I wouldn't be upset with a Trubisky. I really wouldn't. I think those are the best 3 options that we have. I'd be more upset if we went with Marcus Mariota or Cam Newton. I mean, these guys just aren't starters to me. They just aren't. But what say you, Steeler Nation? You should be sure to chime in too and let me know in your responses because that's the way I see it. But now, Steeler Nation, it is time for me to take questions from Steeler Nation over at SteelerNation.com. Join the football forum. It is free. I ask all my questions over there. First one coming from Blitz. Who do I target first in free agency? My number 1 target, Honey Badger. I want Tyrann Mathieu. I really do. I want to see 2 playmaking safeties playing next to each other. Nothing would make me happier. Honestly, would love that. Next question from Blitz. Your thoughts on fixing the O-line? Draft and free agency, my friend. We got to pick up another veteran, probably a veteran interior offensive lineman that is center capable. Can't have enough center capable guys, in my opinion. Honestly, can't. And then probably pick up another outside. We might make a big move to pick up an outside, maybe a right tackle, because Chukwuekorfor is a free agent. We still have Zach Banner. I'd love to see Zach Banner play. He's got all the size and pedigree that we need to be a starting tackle in this league, and he is signed for this year. Chooks is not. So we're going to have to pick somebody up in free agency at tackle. Who's it going to be? I don't know, but we're definitely targeting somebody there. And I'm all for targeting that in the draft as well. Slash Steel had the next question. Did you hear Colbert say they are open to every possible way of acquiring a quarterback? Yes, and they should. Free agency, trade, draft. What's the other one? Yeah, that's pretty much it. Free agency, trading, or a draft. That is how you are going to acquire a quarterback, and you should not leave any stone unturned, though. Now I'm starting really to pull out of we're going to give up draft picks for a quarterback. I just don't think it's going to happen. Not if it's a big draft pick. That one trade that I heard for Jimmy G for 2/4, that's a manageable trade. And that's not a bad trade, and I would consider that. But now with that throwing shoulder surgery, I don't consider it at all. It would have to be lower. Next question from Slash Steel. Potato chips or Doritos? Potato chips all day long, Slash. I have a strange potato chip addiction, and I'm one of those weirdos where every time I go into a store, I try to find the craziest flavor that I've never tried before, and I buy it. Now I'm on like ceviche plantain chips. That's like, I will go the craziest stuff, and I love those. I think they're great. But I will always try the next craziest thing. Lay's always does a great job of throwing out crazy flavors every year to vote on, and I'm always all over that. Next question from Slash Steel. Are the Steelers going to be big free agent participants? And I say they're going to be bigger than usual this year just because they have more cap space than they've ever had. And I'll get into that a little bit later because I saw some other questions on that. Cooley asked, why is Marcus Jones the most intriguing cornerback prospect in the draft? And I love that question. Our draft expert over there in Houston, Texas, Cooley, living next to the Houston University of Houston. And that is where Marcus Jones resides. Obviously, I only think the Houston Texans would know about him right now, but I'm joking. I think he's really short. I don't like his size at all, but I take a day 3 flyer late for him to possibly be a slot corner option because I think he could probably play that in the league, but we'll have to see. But fun question as always there, Cooley, man. Thanks. Next question from Steel Buckeye. Quarterback, cornerback, offensive line, wide receiver, inside linebacker. Why is no one talking about the need for a third outside linebacker? I am all for it, Steel Buckeye. I also think we need a strong safety, but I mean, we can talk about that later, but definitely all for a strong outside linebacker. You also ask, we saw last year that having rotating 3 capable outside linebackers, keeping them all relatively fresh, allows TJ to really go off. Am I happy with Taco and the other dude as the 3rd and 4th outside linebackers? And right now it's Taco and Tuska. So I am intrigued on Taco. I really am. Because this guy has more athletic ability than any guy we have ever had as a 3rd outside linebacker option. Now I'm really interested to see if he's going to really up his game in this offseason to try to train, to try to really live up to that ability of being an awesome or potentially awesome outside linebacker, because he was drafted in the 1st round early by Miami years ago. I think it was Miami. Was it Dallas? It was one of those teams. But either way, all the talent in the world, looked like he was going to be a monster when he got to the league and just didn't have it. Tuska is a nice option as well. I know we don't have Roche. Kudos to him over there in New York, but I am all for picking up another outside linebacker in the draft to compete against Tuska because there's always a good need to upgrade that outside linebacker position, or maybe somebody from the CFL. We'll see who we find. Never know. Next question from Steeler Sask 2. Did you get a new name, Steeler Sask? What happened? Why do you have a 2 after your name now? You used to just be Steeler Sask. We'll have to see. We'll talk about that. I guess he hit the Hawkins cheesies and turned on Harold and Kumar instead. The Hawkins cheesies, I've never had the Hawkins cheesies, but cheese curls are my absolute favorite. Even love them more than potato chips. And Cheetos makes this product now called puff corn. I don't know if anybody's had it, but it's the single greatest salted snack you will ever put in your mouth. Melts in your mouth. It's amazing. It doesn't have those little kernels like popcorn has. I can't not buy Cheetos puff corn if I'm having a party or somebody over. It's like my absolute favorite now. But that is the way to go for me. Mad Insomniac, next question. With roughly 42 left under the cap, how do you see it divvied up? And I think that number is pretty misleading right now because with the rookies, with the dead cap, with the roster, filling up the roster, just getting it back up, we're going to be about 20 million under the cap. Now, I know we can restructure, and I've heard numbers saying that the Steelers could get as far as 80 million under the cap with enough restructures. I don't see us doing that many restructures because we're not that kind of team, and it would kill you in future years because it throws just a ton of dead money in future years. But I can see them being maybe in that 40 million range hitting free agency. But no matter what, the Steelers are going to be hitting free agency with the biggest cap we've ever had. And that's going to be huge. Now, your questions after that, how much money to resign our guys? I'm not sure. I don't see like a huge amount of guys to bring back. I mean, it's Hayden and Witherspoon for cornerback, and I'd go with Witherspoon right now to tell you the truth because he's the younger guy. He's going to cost less than Hayden. I'd love to have Hayden back, but I just don't know if I can afford him next year. Outside, what percentage on outside linebacker, quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver, offensive lineman? I think free agent quarterbacks are going to be cheap. Like I said, Winston's going to be around 10 million. Cornerback market is insane. You've got some like Jackson's like a 20 million guy, $24 million a year guy. We're not getting him. There's some really good 10 million a year options. I think that are out there. Ward's an option that we talked about before. Wide receiver wise, I look for like a slot option, maybe like a Cedric Wilson Jr. perhaps. And the line has to be addressed. Interior offensive lineman has to be addressed and possibly offensive tackle as well. But I don't see us going out and throwing money at huge amounts, but maybe in that middle tier amount. Yeah, we'll bring in some decent free agents in all those positions. How much for the Fitzpatrick extension? Well, the good thing about the Fitzpatrick extension, I think it'll be less than his current 5th-year option, just like what happened with Watt. He ended up costing less than his 5th-year option in that year last year. He's going to be big this year. Same thing's going to happen, but he's still going to be like a $15 million to $18 million guy a year to re-sign, and he's going to be worth every penny. We're re-signing him no matter what, and it's going to happen. Any other extension, Stryker? Yes. I look for the Steelers to extend Deontay Johnson this season. And it's going to be in like the $12 to $15 million range, which I think is dirt cheap because he can ball. He's our top target guy, and you can build a pass attack around him. He gets open every play. I mean, this guy is sick good. He's entering his 4th season, which I've done my podcast last week. That's when our X receivers start to go off. You lock this guy in before he becomes a monster, like we did with Antonio Brown over Mike Wallace before he became a monster. That's how it's done, guys. And then you lock DJ in, and hopefully he has that same upward meteoric rise as Antonio Brown had in his year 4 through 8. Next questions from Drink Iron City, our last question asker of the day. Welcome, Cope Sober High, full of crap, cool guy, and in between stuff as well. Does Green start at center this year? No, in my thinking. Well, for me, DIC, it's a maybe, a hard maybe. And that's only because Kevin Colbert said he can also play guard. So then I'm like, where do you put him? Well, yeah, he's an athlete. He's athletic as hell. He could play guard, and he could be a great guard. And I'd probably end up putting him at left guard because I'd like to see Dotson at right guard. And right guard is his natural position for high school all the way through college when he's a first-team All-American. That's where I want to put Dotson. That's where I want him to move the other team, is in his natural spot. Sure, he couldn't play there when we had David DeCastro because David DeCastro was only a right tackle. Same thing for Trey Turner, who was only a right tackle. I'd like to see Dotson go back to right tackle. I think that would help a lot as well. But there is also an intriguing aspect that Green is in offseason training with Marquise Pouncey currently. I mean, that was his first year last year playing center ever. He's learned how to play center in the NFL, and I think he did a fine job for a kid learning how to play center in his first year. So yes, he's starter capable. He's going to be stronger. He's going to be better at snapping the football and making the reads. He's got to make all the reads at the line of scrimmage. A year under his belt, not worried about a rookie wall hitting him next year. The sky is the limit for this kid. And he has all the athleticism in the world because he can get down the field faster. He's like Dermody Dawson fast at getting down the field. Like, I've never seen a center get down the field that fast in years. And Dermody Dawson was the best I'd ever seen at that time. This guy's there too. He got out on a wide receiver screen, which I thought was a wide receiver screen. It was at the goal line early in the season last year. And he beat like Juju Smith-Schuster over to there and the tight end. And he was the lead blocker on what I thought was a wide receiver screen, but it was the center ran out and ahead of him. But he's fast. And I'm not throwing him out yet. Not throwing him out yet from being a center. We'll have to see this year. Next question. Will the new defensive coordinator be allowed to, do anything? I think Tomlin took Buds out to a larger degree than the past seasons. I personally think Tomlin will be able to release some of the play calling with Austin and Flores on the team. I mean, Flores knows how to be a defensive coordinator. He knows how to be a head coach. I mean, this is going to be a great situation. Austin helped out last year, too, in the booth for some managing plays. And I want to see Flores do that as well. So we'll have to see how this works out, how it works, and if they can take some pressure off of Tomlin and just let him be a head coach. Let him start being the game manager that we need in these games so that we're not making small mistakes in time management, in decision-making for throwing the red flag. Those are the things we need the head coach to be 100% locked into to make sure that game is managed properly. Number 3, is there a snag in the Loudermilk interview? Have you asked him to interview? I think it's getting to the right time to contact with him. And I like Drink Iron City. I keep asking him for an interview, but he won't return my emails. He won't answer me when I call, slide into his DMs, knock on his door, peek in his window. I think he might have a restraining order out now or something, but offer's always open, Loudermilk. Love to have you on the show, man. Would love to have you there. Last question from Drink Iron City. I'm building a kayak trailer for myself. Are there any colors paint that I should think about other than black and gold? Well, first off, no. But if you should think about colors other than black and gold, you've got to realize the hypocycloid here is a very colorful helmet. It's got yellow, red, and blue, which are all of the colors. Silver also in white. I mean, we got all the colors of the rainbow here. If you use the primary colors, you can make any color. So sky's the limit. Make a rainbow trailer, man. Don't sell yourself short, man, with just a couple colors or one color. Make it fun. And thanks, guys. I love it. Steeler Nation for doing this stuff for me. And also Drink Iron City, thanks for doing this. I truly hope all is well with you, my friend. Thank you. And thank you as well. And guys, come on over and check out our sponsor, Total Sports Enterprises at tseshop.com. They always have great giveaways. Check out their Twitter as well. Make sure you follow them there. Vidcast is usually at Tuesdays at 7 p.m. live. Check out great Pittsburgh sports content at dkpittsburghsports.com. The place to go for the best content and the greatest podcast network in existence. Over at dkpittsburghsports.com. Read our great Steeler-focused articles at SteelerNation.com. Tweet us at SteelerNation. Instagram us at SteelerNation.com. Follow the podcast at _SN Podcast or Twitter, Steeler Nation Podcast. Or follow me, Twitter, Instagram at SN Stryker. Thank you for joining us for the Steeler Nation Podcast, sponsored by Total Sports Enterprises and part of the DK Pittsburgh Sports Podcast Network. I'm your host, G Stryker, rooting along with you as always. Go Steelers!